that happens behind the scenes. So I come in this morning and, I have best laid plans around the things I'm going to say. But then on the drive, and so I totally get Karen, right? She's like, she's got a plan and then something happens at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm driving in and I thought to myself, I feel like I should really reference a couple of stories. But I go in and I run it by Tony. So we're in the back and I'm going, so I'm going to say this thing about, I was talking to Tanis this week, because, when you speak, you get some input into the songs. So you can make a suggestion or just leave it to the band. So I thought Landslide would be a great song for today, and I love it, and I love the Dixie Chicks version as well. And then I heard that Sydney was going to be joining us, and so I wrote back and said, oh, wow, it'll be like the Partridge Family. And I got 2 words back, Von Trapp. So I thought, because I thought, Pierre's got this whole like David Cassidy thing going on. I wore my platforms in case we could, do a little shuffle up here today. I was picturing all that kind of stuff.
Paint the PT Cruiser with the blocks of
I
color.
got the retro car. So I decided to share this with Tony in the prayer room as I'm getting ready, and you stole it. Like it so came up here and you just made it your own.
You know what? There's really only one sense of humor.
Yeah.
There's one mind. And there's apparently one big ham standing up here, and I don't think it's you.
So, yeah.
She's the funny one. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so when you're dealing with a comedian from LA, right, it's like you got to be careful how you share your shtick. I have to be really sensitive how I say that.
Okay, so
sharing your shtick.
What else did I say in the prayer room?
All kinds of wonderful and beautiful things, like my earrings and.
And you're looking hot
I'm
this
looking
morning.
hot. Yeah, you did.
So
Yeah. So I forgive you. Thank you very, very much.
Don't
I
ever
love this.
change, except for
one
all the
humor
time.
consciousness ends with a little giggle. I like it. I like the view. Okay, thank you. I thought, I'm not letting him get away with that. I thought I had this little thing cooked up. I thought, yeah, you think Partridge Family, and I know we have different age groups in here, and I thought, okay, what was your first 45? Do people remember your first 45? And some people are looking at me like, what the hell's a 45, right? I know. And Howard, I was talking to him earlier, and he's like, 45? I got a 78, right? You are so gracious to let me do that to you. Thank you. And I'm sure I'll get it back at some point. Thank you. He's rubbing his chin, right? Yeah. So I thought the Landslide was quite a nice song for today. And then I think about how we're stepping into a whole lot of change. We're coming to holidays, all different kinds of holidays for different cultures and religious beliefs. We're coming into a change here at the center. I really feel right now we're actually in what I'm going to call a bridge. And Marianne Williamson talks about the bridge in her Gift of Change book, so I have a little bit on that today. And we're also stepping into a new year. The Burning Bowl ceremony is lovely. How many people in the room have never been to the Burning Bowl ceremony? Okay, put it in your calendar, January 1st. It is amazing. It is amazing. I'm very happy to be here talking today. It was a bit unexpected for me. Reverend Ann was meant to speak. She has injured her arm. I am speaking in her place. So I'm quite happy to. I wanted to do something today, though, because I'm also heading away. I have some change happening in my life. I'm heading to Egypt for a couple of weeks on business. Don't get too jealous here, right? You're picturing sun and pyramids. It's a lot of work.
Picturing you and a camel.
Me and a camel. My friend's son said, "Can you please tell her that camels spit?" He's about 4. That's what he knows of camels. So hopefully I'll get a little postcard for him showing like a spitting camel. Nolan, you were right. So it's a wonderful way for me to say happy holidays to everybody here today, and I will see you at the Burning Bowl on January 1st. When we head into Christmas season, I know in my life, I think Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown, right? So Charlie Brown has this great quote. In the book of life, the answers aren't in the back. I think of like the murder mystery, where you go to the end and then you come back, right? Or like those books you may have had when you were a teenager and it was like pick a story or a mystery and you read so far and you get choices. You get like a fork in the road and then you pick another plot and you carry along. But you can go back and choose another plot and you can carry along. And it's these wonderful path of mystery stories. So if the answers were in the back, would you run to the back and look for them? How many people in the room would run to the back and look for them? Okay. How many people are not admitting that they would run to the back and look for the answers? Okay, there we go. A little more honesty. Statistically relevant, I think that. So when you think of change, this idea of change, and we're going through change. We're going through change here at the world famous Center for Spiritual Living, Toronto. I don't know if everyone knows this, but we are west of Winnipeg. There's nothing. So we are responsible for here to St. John's. So when the change takes place and Jonathan comes in the new year, he's very familiar with live streaming and web, and he'll be part of getting us up and onto that forum where people from all over Canada, and especially places that don't have a center, can watch us and see us and participate. And when that became a reality last week during the vote, I went up to Pierre and I said, we may have to go on tour. Something will happen, and it'll be people in Nova Scotia will say, it's not enough to see you on TV. Can you guys come here? I was personally hoping the people in St. John's, Newfoundland might feel that way, and I could head that way too. But it's possibility. And I'm an entrepreneur, so when something like that happens, I just think possibilities. We're going to go on tour. we're a little bit removed from that, but I like to believe it's possible. So when you think of change, when a change happens in your life, how many of you think, oh crap, what's this going to be about? Right? And how many people look at change and go, okay, this is going to be interesting? Because some people do. Some people do. And so internally right now which one is your auto response, so to speak. The song Landslide, the definition of landslide is the sliding down of a mass of earth or rock from a mountain or cliff. And this resonated with me because maybe you've been in a space in your life when you've been on top of the world, so to speak, on top of that mountain, on top of that cliff. And in one moment, something happened and you slid down that mountain. You experienced a landslide. When we sum up our lives, really, our lives can be defined by 5 days. On average, 5 days. There are 5 days that rock your world. There are 5 days that change your life. There are 5 days that are breathless in your life. And as I'm saying this, you might be thinking of some of them. And Judy, you gave some examples here. They are like the birth of a child, the death of a spouse, the loss of a parent, getting that big promotion that you were even wondering, oh my God, can I do this? Big changes like that, a relocation, your first house. There are about 5 days that really define us in our life. And for every person in this room, your 5 days are different, but there would probably be some similarities in that there was either extreme joy or extreme sadness in those 5 days. And it only takes those 5 days to really sum up our life. When we look back, we can see the fork in the road. We can see something happened and it split. We had choice. Or something happened and it was a sharp right-hand turn. But we definitely can feel that. And we would have experienced something like that landslide. When you go through change like that, and especially when it catches you by surprise, there is something that I refer to with my clients when they're going through such big change, and some of it is in Michael Mirdad's his little blue book, when he comes to town and he promotes his book, The 5 Stages of Soul Transformation, and the first is the dismantling, so something happens, right? And anyone in the audience seen the movie The Matrix? Apparently it's a really good movie. I've not seen it, and whenever I give this example, people say, oh, you have to see the movie. But what I remember of the movie was this awesome camera angle. Do you remember that? Where everything kind of spun around. And when you're in this place of change in your life and something really takes you by surprise, sometimes the best thing we can do is to stand still. And it can be the hardest thing to do too. But it's kind of like you're so shocked by it that you feel as if things are sort of moving around you. Does this resonate for some people? It's like, you're just watching things in slow motion happen, right? And so that visual for me really speaks to how that experience can touch us and how we feel that we land in that experience. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "If the single man planted himself indomitably on his instincts, and there abide, the huge world will come round to him." I think he didn't see the Matrix movie either, but it aptly describes it. And it's interesting, and another thing I was telling Tony before we started today is that I've become in charge of the book order. So we're ordering up books. We've got a whole selection from Hay House coming in, some of the books that Jonathan referred to, Charles Barker books, The Power of Decision and such, plus The Mental Muscle is coming. And I'm really happy about a couple of Wayne Dyer kids books, So these principles, but for little people. But I have a feeling people will be buying them saying, oh, it's for so-and-so, but I think it's really for them. I can see that happening. So in doing this book order, I connected with NoHo and got in touch with this lady, Reverend Rita. And Tony's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my world's so small. Now you're talking to Reverend Rita. At the bottom of her email subscript is this Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. And so I saw that earlier in the week, and I thought, that sounds like the Matrix. I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to bring that in and use it. So here we are, synergistically, all connected. It's happening. We are in the bridge of change. So when change enters your life, what is your auto response? You know how you can send someone an email and you get that auto response or that out of office? What is your auto response? Where do you go to first? Do you think, okay, it's out of office. I need to think about this. I'll get back to you. So change happens. I need to think about this. I'm going to get back to you. Or do you go into sort of a GPS kind of mode, like recalculating, I swear those voices can sometimes be really strong. It's like, is she judging me or what? Turn right. I'm like, what if you could get this new thought, like Louise Hay type voice in your GPS? I think that we should have a conversation about the direction you're going in next. And we will affirm for traffic. All traffic is clear. It's untapped market. It's a new thought GPS. I don't know. Someone in the room's going, that's a great idea. Let me so I can get an app for that. So one path through change is the path of control. How many people feel this resonates with them? Okay, so something happens. It's like, okay, what do I need to do? I'm going to take control of the situation. And by the way, that's a good thing because I've been told it's a good thing. And because if I'm a good person, good parent, good, daughter, good son, good husband, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna take control. So in the moments when you want to take control, and it's so compelling because by the way, then you're doing something and there's action, right? When you settle into taking control is like having lids on all the pots. And control is a carefully crafted illusion. Okay? Control is but a moment in time. This means if you get all the lids on all the pots, that lasts for but 1 second because all of a sudden there's something going on over here and we're having to readjust and we're having to readjust and we're having to readjust. And control wants its way. But by the way, control wants its way. Control has a very clear path and we're going down it. Darn it, we're going down it. Okay? There's no GPS recalculating. We're going down it. And maybe because I know the best way to do this, because I've researched it and I've thought about it and I've learned it before. And why would you want to do anything different? I know the right way. Let's just do that, right? So control. Control can be a very active stance, by the way. So it can have us feel like we're doing stuff. However, it can also be very exhausting. Because just like those lids on that pot and controlling everything for just a second, then what happens is another second, and another second, and another second. And you have to be very, very active. So people who are trying to control things are exhausted. They're exhausted. They're exhausted doing the work. They're exhausted anticipating what's going to happen next. They're exhausted trying to figure it all out. Oh, and not just figure it all out, but all the people around me and what they want and what's their agenda. And how can I ensure that I can do what I want and still, well, maybe honor their agenda if that's kind of what I want to do, but maybe not. Maybe I want to exclude their agenda because I know, after all, I've researched it and I know the right way, so we're just going to do what I'm saying we're going to do. So control is a very, very active way of living. And I meet clients who go through control and they come in and they'll say big words that stick, like a lot of shoulds. I should be doing this. This should be that way. This should, and they'll talk to me about a situation and they'll run through it about how something didn't happen with their boss. And they're like this, And I'll say, well, okay, so how was that supposed to go? And they're like, well, I don't know what you mean. And I'll say, well, it didn't go the way you wanted it. It didn't go the way you planned. And somehow the situation's fallen short from your expectation. So tell me how it was supposed to go. And the interesting thing is they struggle to tell how it was supposed to go. Because they were down with the lids and the pots and just looking at exactly this thing, exactly this time, only exactly this. Another path through change is curiosity. I also call that choice, though I think it is a choice to be in control or be curious. But I maintain that people don't really want control in their life. They step into my office and we talk and they'll say, I want to get control over what's happening at work. I want to get control over my life. I want to get control over my relationship with my mother. And it's like, ooh, okay, well, we can do that for about 1 second. 1 second. And then it's going to change, and then it's going to change, and then it's going to change. So it's sort of like this. And it's exhausting. It's like Zumba, 23 hours a day, right? It's exhausting. And by the way, it begins to show in our health. Over time, it begins to show in our health. And when I've worked with corporate people who are senior and moving up in their roles, I call it the corporate cocktail, the drugs that they're on. And I could predict it. I could predict you're coming to talk to me, and I know that you're seeing the nutritionist and you're on a blood pressure pill and probably Lipitor for cholesterol, and you either have an anti-anxiety drug or a depression drug or one or the other, or a combo to keep you up or keep you down, or but there's this is the cocktail. And this is a signal that the body is going, what the heck are you doing to me? Because it's being dragged around by this brain and everything we think we want. And everything we want to control. And our poor bodies are like going behind us going, could you just give us a freaking break? It's like, do we have to do another marathon this year? I mean, really? And the control is cerebral. The body is along for the ride. The body is protesting, and it begins to show in health. You may know my background was in human resources when I worked corporately, and so I got to see very intimately, people coming in and having really difficult situations, and knowing that a lot of that was the stance that they took in the way that they worked with people around them. And it's so simple to say, well, let it go. Just let it go. Just let it go, right? Yeah, simple answer. Simple answer. And it's not so simple because it comes from our belief system. In a quote by Thomas Merton, the truth that many people never understand until it is too late is that the more you try to avoid suffering, the more you suffer. Because smaller and more insignificant things begin to torture you in proportion to your fear of being hurt. Yeah. I found that one on the wall in the treatment prayer room out front. Yeah, I took a picture with my camera last week. I thought, that's coming with me next week. And it's true, because control and fear, they're buddies. They hang out, right? You know, people can come across all controlling, like maybe they're dominant and they know what they're doing, and underneath that it's like this balloon, and if you just put a pin in it, it's fear. It's fear underneath, right? Fear of the unknown. When we look at curiosity as a second path, I believe that people who come into my office and talk to me about control don't want control. They want another C word. They want choice. They want choice. People want to know they have options. So when you can get curious about things that are happening, then you're able to experience change in a more fluid way. You're able to react. You're able to let some things go. You can also have a level of unattachment, not detachment, like I don't give a crap, but like you're able to have some level of detachment and unattachment that allows you to actually be empathetic. And Helen spoke last week about sympathetic when you jump down in the hole and no one can help anyone, versus being empathetic and being up here and being able to help people because you're able to see the moving parts because you're not so close in, you've lost perspective. Curiosity is not tiring, by the way. Curiosity also wants a solution, and curiosity is driven by love. So in order to be curious, some things have to happen. You have to believe that the people involved in the change that you're working through don't get up in the morning and say, how am I going to screw someone's day up today? Because it does feel sometimes that you're out in the world and you're meeting with people and it's like, did they just try to make my day difficult? But coming from a place of curiosity is also coming from a place of love. When you are curious, you're able to watch things happen and you're able to participate in what happens, and you're able to move through change in such a way that you're able to contribute and be part of it and not feel that you have to force it in any particular way. So with the changes that are happening here, some people are sitting in this stance of sort of like heels dug in a little bit, like, okay, I'm bracing, I have no idea, but I'm waiting to see the good, and then when I see something really good, then I'm going to join in and I'm going to react, and I'm waiting for that. And some people might be in a spot of, well, this is all good, I'm excited, I'm curious, I'm going to see where it goes, I'm going to go with the flow. So either way of thinking about the change that we're going through is valid for the person. Know that at any time, if you want to do a little less of the active control, that you can get curious about the control. So it starts with when you know that you would tend to prefer to control in a change situation, to create some awareness and step back and say, look at me controlling. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why I'm doing that. Yeah, what's motivating that? Yeah. What do other people want? What are other people doing? Kind of get some view. Get some awareness of it. And then you can shift to whatever degree, if control is over here and curiosity is over here, and even shifting 1 degree is like a mountain for you, then maybe that's fine. Maybe that's where it needs to be. Absolutely. I recall, I'm just going to step up a little moment here to something more near. This week I did something a lot of fun. I went and bought socks. Okay. Okay. So people, I know. Woo, I'll take a bow. So here was the thing. Like, we just had some bad weather. I was putting on socks and my toes are starting to show, and I'm going, I need some new socks. So I thought, I'll go get some socks because the change in weather, and I'm going to go change. But I love my socks. But I want to go get some new socks. Okay. So I went and changed my socks. Really something very simple. I went and got some new sort of winter socks. They're very cute with like little, Christmassy things. And it's like going back to school, isn't it? And some people are smiling in the room. They know it. And it's a small purchase, and it delights me. So I bought socks. And it reminded me, though, of a time back in May where I would be getting ready for service on Sunday, and I would be putting on my socks. I think we were having a little bit of a cold spell because I'm remembering socks. And I was putting on my socks, getting ready to head out in the morning. And there were about two, at least two, maybe three of those Sundays where I can remember it because it's the same body movement. And I remember putting on socks. And I'm thinking to myself, something's happening at the center. And I'm thinking to myself, how could I was seeing the center without a spiritual director. I was seeing the center changed. And that meant that perhaps Barbara was going to do something else. But, logic comes in, right? Okay, so this is May, don't forget. So logic comes in, and I'm like, oh, but that can't happen. Nothing can happen. Because there's nobody in the wings. The practitioners and like Helen Vallot, she's a couple of years away from being able to be the person up here full time. So that can't possibly happen. So what am I thinking about while I'm putting on my socks? Right? This is just craziness. But it's stuck in my gut, it's an intuition thing. And I thought, yeah, how could that it just didn't make sense to me. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, we found ourselves in a change, which could not have been anticipated. However, I think that many of the people who have been here for a long time, and now we've had opportunity to sort of talk about the experience. We're like 6 months out of the experience of taking that shift. Some people, when they looked into their own body and intuition, they were like, yeah, I felt something coming. Because you can feel stuff coming when there's change like that. And then I think we went into this place in the summer where we were running the show as the board, thinking, "Are we gonna make it through the summer?" And I swear, I think I'll speak for myself, but I thought, are people making bets? Does someone have? I'm taking August 23rd. $5 on August 23rd. And it felt that way, right? And we were going through this change, and we would sit in our board meetings, and there was a combination of control. And there was a combination of curiosity. And then there was lots of a sense of choice and knowing that something was going to happen. But having to have one foot in the old situation and working all that out, and one foot in a new situation, trying to get things moving and get things happening. And I believe when we had this experience at the beginning of the summer, it felt like a landslide. It was like we were going along, boom! Oh my gosh, what does this mean, right? And we know that as people are moving up in their own training and in practicing and wanting to be ministers, that we will not find ourselves in that gap again, because we will be prepared and we'll have more people. And that is the learning that had to come through all of this. So there's some beauty here in change. And if all change comes from fear or love, if all of our reactions come from fear or love, as I mentioned, I'd like you to read from The Gift of Change by Marianne Williamson. She talks about the miracle in it, which I think we are experiencing. A miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. It is a divine intercession from a thought system beyond our own, rearranging our perceptions and thus rearranging our world. I know I felt in May putting on my socks, how could this possibly happen? It didn't make sense, and things got rearranged. There are only two core emotions, love and fear. When change hits you, do you go to a place of love, knowing that whatever good is going to happen, whatever solution is going to be determined, is going to be fine and right and perfect and in order? Or do you go to a place of fear, and fear will drive your action, and you'll always just be a couple of steps ahead? And it's kind of like that parable of dog sled racing. Unless you're the lead dog, the scenery never changes. That's landing for people at different places. So, yeah. You can see this nice view or a couple of butts, Yeah. But fear would have us there. It's like, no, I'm not going up front. I'm going to stay right here, and I'm going to follow, and I'm going to know what it's going to be like, and then I can anticipate, and everything's in order, and I got two people in front of me leading me, and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, exactly. It's still landing for some people. Yeah. There are only two core emotions, love and fear. And love is to fear as light is to darkness. in the presence of one, the other disappears. As we shift our perceptions from fear to love, sometimes in cases where it's not so hard, and ultimately in cases where it takes spiritual mastery to do so, or something that feels like spiritual mastery, we become miracle workers in the truest sense. For when our minds are surrendered to love, they are surrendered to a higher power. And from that, all miracles follow. Miracles don't come from being tight and rigid and trying to keep all the lids on the pot. We might miss them, actually, because they're not in our line of sight. Miracles come from the openness, from the curiosity. In order for us to live in curiosity, we have to be willing to participate, by the way. And we have to believe, like I said, that most people don't get up thinking, how am I going to screw up your day? Sometimes you're in line somewhere and you're getting gas, getting coffee in the morning, and you're thinking, what the heck is this person doing? Like, it's so upsetting my day. I had plans. I'm supposed to be somewhere at 9:10. And how could you be doing this to me? I've been in line at the grocery store, and I have this great line. I have no trademark on it. Use it. And it's like when stuff starts happening and like I don't have prices or they have to call, and then the people behind me are all, and they're huffing or they're being passive aggressive or they even start to talk. Can you believe? So I now have come up with this thing to sort of let myself off the hook and dispel it all. And I'll look at the cashier and I'll look at the people behind me and I say, I've now become the person I don't want to be behind in line. They can't be mad at me for that. I didn't wake up that day thinking, I'm going to make you 2 minutes late for whatever you're doing. So we have to invoke a Shakespearean suspension of disbelief. So in Shakespeare plays, well, first of all, there were no women, so the women were like young men, right? And, in this, so you had to suspend your belief that there could be that these are women, so you have to imagine that. Plus, stuff took place over a couple of hours that took place over several days or weeks, for instance. And that makes sense in TV land right now because you can go to different time places. However, in a play that's being performed on a stage, you had to understand that you had to suspend your disbelief that this was impossible. And so you had to believe that, oh, okay, now they're in a forest, and it just happened 5 minutes ago, but it's 3 days from now, and now they're in a forest. So invoking the Shakespearean suspension of disbelief. And I think of going back to this landslide song, and a landslide being a natural occurrence. We can learn a lot from nature and change and curiosity and choice and flow. And I have an experience to relay regarding a willow tree. So my folks live 2 hours away out in the country on a lake, 8 houses on the lake, and they have a willow tree. And willow trees love the water, so it's down hanging over the water like you imagine a willow tree would. And in 1997, my family experienced a tornado on this lake. And how I found out about it was I got a phone call from my mom saying that they were out of power and her husband was going to stay and work on things, but she needed to come and see me. And it wasn't kind of an ask. I think she'd packed. I think she was at the SO station or something. I was like, okay, yeah. So she came to see me because they had no power. When she came to stay with me for a few days while this got restored, we found that her house was the only house of the 8 houses on the lake that was actually hit by the tornado. You know how they touched down? And so she went into this unfairness piece, like, why us? And everybody else was okay, and they were just hammered. And, it's the randomness of things, right? But the willow tree was like a fork in the road. The willow tree had 2 branches with double. One was hanging over the lake, and one was hanging in. The one that was hanging in, lightning hit it, and it actually got cut off. So there was this big stump, and then the piece hanging out into the water. And they didn't, of course, take away the stump because they would have lost part of their land. Talking about a landslide, it would have gone over. And so they needed to anchor what was left of the tree. So they kept this big stump. Well, later that spring, we noticed something funny happening. There was a tree growing out of the stump. There was a white birch tree growing out of the stump. And that was 1997. Since then, the willow tree got hit by lightning a second time. And now the part that hangs over the water is actually not there anymore. So it's a stump. But the stump is about this high. And the white birch tree starts here in the stump. And it's about 25 feet high. Okay? So the interesting thing is there are no white birch trees on my mom's property. The only white birch trees in the neighborhood are in house number 8 down at the end of the lake. So in this tornado, what happened is a seed went in, got planted, got comfy, decided he liked it there. The willow tree didn't look and go, hey, what are you doing here? You know, I think of like the 1970s television, what you doing, Willis? Nothing like that happened. You know, he was able to get there and root in and get quite comfortable. And my folks didn't take him out. They thought it was really curious. The willow tree accepted him. And he actually lives and breathes in this stump. And the stump can't get taken away now because the stump would take away the tree. And it's a bit of a curiosity. It's a bit of a fascination. So this white birch had some choices. This willow was curious. And now they have a life together. Okay? And I love that story because nature can handle change. Nature is, by its very nature, adaptable to us. You know, and Mother Nature has a great sense of humor too. So she put a white birch tree in a willow. Who would think? You know, someone could have come along and said, that doesn't belong there. Take that out. No, but it sits there. It sits there. And it's a beautiful representation of how, when the fork in the road happens, you can go to curiosity. So in closing, I'd like you to think for a moment about how you would like to go through change. I'm talking about the center, but also you're about to meet all these family members and friends and stuff over the next few months. I affectionately call it Dysfunction Junction. Yeah. That resonates for some people. So you're going to go meeting all kinds of people you want to see, some you're not so sure you want to see, but there's opportunities here for you in every individual conversation to change the way that conversation goes. You know, when we have people in our lives where we have difficult scenarios with them or things that you can anticipate. You know that if you meet Uncle Charlie at a holiday thing coming up, he's going to say this. And then you're going to say this. And then he's going to say this. And so I know I see some nods here, right? People know what I'm talking about. But it's like you've both been doing the waltz for years and you know exactly how this conversation ends. So I want to encourage you to change up your dance, to get curious. And what if you did the salsa? And how would that affect Uncle Charlie wanting to do the waltz, you know? Or what if you did a merengue? What if you Zumba? You really freaking you might be alone more than not in your cocktail parties, and that might be okay, depending on your take on that. But to be curious. And when you see yourself in a place of control, rigidity, step outside that. Well, look at me, being all in control. I wonder what that's about. What's going on here? Am I okay with that? Would I like to move it back a little step? What are the other possibilities? Could I recalculate? So we can shift from control to curiosity. If you imagine, it's like a string. And you can play in any part of it. But we usually play at one end, by the way. And there's a lot in the middle that we can play in. And it's very elastic. Very elastic. And as I'm heading away this week, and I will not see you till January 1st, I'd love to hear about some of your merengue, Zumba, waltzes with Uncle Charlie and things that happened, and some of your control curiosity that may have happened over the holidays. And if you have, if Dysfunction Junction resonated with you, I'm happy to hear how that goes too. I'm always curious. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you.